Hey everybody, Al here from BC Extreme Outdoorsman. Today I'm going to do a little video on all the gear and tools and stuff I use, from dyes to lube and everything else for hand loading. So here we go. I'll show you what I use. Okay everyone, the first thing I do when I get back from the range after shooting is I'll take each piece of brass out and I'll do the necks with this steel wool and then throw it in the tumbler there. That's just a Thumbler's tumbler, Ultravibe 10. I've had that thing for, it's got to be pushing 30 years, if not longer, and it still works great, and that's all I use to tumble. I will usually tumble my brass. It depends if it's not very dirty. It's only like an hour or two. If it's really dirty, I'll leave it overnight. So from there, I will take the brass out, and let's see here. I forgot to get this out. I will then deprime it. I just use a Lee Universal decapping die, and I actually had it bored out by a machinist to fit a 338 case. So I'll just put that in the press. I am using a Redding Big Boss press. Of course, I've had this for quite a few years as well. It seems to work very well. I would like to have a zero press or some fancy press like that, but I can't justify spending that kind of money on a press when this press works just as good as any other. Okay, so once I'm done depriming, then I will clean the primer pockets, and I'll usually take a primer pocket tool, which I have right here. It's just a Redding one, and I'll insert it into one of these, and I'll just clean the primer pockets, and then I always run the brush through the neck too. I want it somewhat clean for the next step, which would be annealing. Okay, not sure if you can see this very well because of the light, but this is where I do my annealing. I got a bunch of test piece brass here just to, when I set it up at first, to get the flame right and the timing right so that it anneals it at the proper temperature. I've never used Tempolac or anything to get the proper temperature. I've done it for so many years and I've never had a problem, never had a split neck, never had one crack, and my accuracy is there, so why change anything? This is the Anneal-Ease, one of their original ones, and it works very well. Not much else to say about this, but I'll anneal after every firing. And like I say, I'll use a test piece here. That's 338, and I got 223 here, and then 6.5 Creedmoor. So I have all those, and I'll anneal them. And once I'm done annealing, then the next step will be to resize. Okay, back to the reloading bench. Once I'm done annealing, I'll usually bring them down, and I'll use some of this. If I'm shooting like anything bigger than a 223, I always lube the inside of my necks with a Q-tip with just a little bit of the sizing wax. It's just something I've always done. I don't know, it just seems to work for me. So after that, I will insert my resizing die. And as you can see by the dies I have here, I really like Redding dies. This is my 338 Lapua dies, and then I have an extra body die because I got two 338s. And then, believe it or not, these are really cheap dies, and they work crazy good. I get awesome concentricity and everything with them, and they work really good for the price. And then I got the Wooden dies, which are really nice custom dies, and they're for my 6mm Creedmoor. So that's basically every kind of die that I use for all my reloading setup here. Okay, so then I'll resize, and when I resize, I've showed you guys this before, I use this Innovative Technologies. It tells me how, like, this is all before Hornady came out with their nice little net gauges and stuff. I'll insert a brass in here, off and located off about the middle of the shoulder, on right in here. I don't know if you can see that, but And then I'll zero this, and then I will use these shims. I've talked about all this before in previous videos. I'll use all these shims, put the die in, go down, and I'll measure it, and I want around 1.5 to 2,000 a shoulder bump. I do take out the expander balls, or for bushing dies, I use one that necks it down quite tight, because I will be using a mandrel set, which I have right here, before I seat any bullets. And I also have a review on my channel on this set, and it is a very good set. So before all the resizing and stuff, of course, I always place all my brass in that pan, and if I'm doing a whole bunch, I will spray it all with the Hornady One Shot. If I'm only doing like 20 or 30, I will just use the Redding Imperial Sizing Die Wax, which works very well. Okay, so now I've resized. So now, depending on the die set, some of them I have to do the neck first, and the other one's a body side or body die. Like this is a body die for the 338. So basically, I have to resize the neck, which I'm just necking it down fairly tight, and then I'll put the body die in, and that's when I use the shims. Or depending on the die set, I'll just use the resizing die, because it does the neck and the body at the same time, and I'll just shim it to the appropriate size. So once I've done that, the brass is now ready for trimming, and I use this Lyman case trimmer Express. Works very well. It trims off the shoulder of the brass rather than the back of the brass, and myself, I like that better. Basically a Girard does that as well. So it's a lot cheaper than Girard and easier to change calibers, as you get all these collets. I think they're called collets. Oh, bushings. Get all these bushings with it. And this was good catch, eh? This is one for, I think it was an 04, so it was 300 ACC. I'm never going to use that. I couldn't find one for 338, so I just got my machinist friend to bore this out so that it'll fit the 338 Lapua, and that works really well. So I usually trim the brass maybe 4 or 5 thousandths down to before max. That's just me. And so once they're trimmed, then again, I'll use this little Hornady. I used to have the big Hornady thing, but prep case, whatever, that trimmed. I really didn't like it. It wasn't very accurate, and it had the little, I believe it was the pilots that went inside the brass, and it would mark up the inside of the brass, which I didn't like. It would put little scratch marks on it. So then I deburr the outside, the inside, and then I run the brush through it and make sure there's nothing in it. So I use that Hornady, I forget what it's called. I do have the box here. Yeah, the Hornady Case Prep Trio, that's what that's called. Okay, once that's done, I will install the appropriate neck or expander mandrel. And I usually do it at about 2 thou, because these are I think this one's a 0.307 and this one will be a 0.306, correct? So I'd use a 0.306 to give myself about 2 thousandths neck tension. And I'd install this in here with the right mandrel. And for every case that I'm going to load, I'll put in the mandrel, and I usually hold it there for about 10 seconds. That's just me. And then after that, it's primer time. So I put the primers, and I use in this Frankfurt Arsenal reloading tool primer tool. Now this will do both large rifle and small rifle, and it comes with all these. But one thing I'll say, with the 223 brass that I'm using, I think probably more than likely because it is crimped, military crimp brass. I've swaged it. I'll show you that tool, but it doesn't seem to seat them very good. It does an awesome job on the large rifle, and you can adjust it right here with this dial in 1,000th deep increments, because you want it, and it's very precise. And this thing here is solid. Like it probably weighs like close to half a pound. You're not going to break this or wear this out anytime soon. And then you get all the shell holders as well. So once I'm done that, then it's off to the scale. And while I'm doing all that, putting the primers in and running the Mandro through, this is my scale. This is a A&D FX121 with the powdered trickler. I believe this is a V2, and this scale is accurate to 2/100ths of a grain, which is crazy accurate. It's actually a balance, not a scale, and it is very accurate. And there's an app on the phone. I put in what grain I want. Like say I want 42 grains. I'll dial this. Like right now it's set up for 223, so it's just past the 2. So let's say I'm doing the 223. So that's all set up for the 223. I'd fill this up, fill that up. I would run this a little bit to fill the tube, dump it out, and I would dump this charge just to make sure that it is close to what I want for powder, like 25 grains. And then I'll go to my app and I'll put 25 grains dispense, and I'll turn it on. And every time I put the scale or the little cup here on here, as soon as this reads 0 or 2/100ths, it'll drop a charge. It's automatic, and once that's done, then I use these here, which is the Lyman scale or funnel. It's a good funnel. The price is right. It's not super expensive. Like I say, the Area 419 is very nice, but I can't justify almost $300 just for a funnel. But it comes with all the different sizes for the neck sizes. You got 223, which is in there, and you got 6 mil, 6.5, 270, 30 cal, and 338. So that's everything I shoot. I didn't have to buy any extra ones, and then they do sell extra ones as well. The scale is, or the funnel is pretty nice. It's basically, I'm guessing, aluminum. Powder doesn't stick in it. I just loaded some ball powder with it yesterday and in the 223, and it worked great. One thing with the 223, if you're using ball powder, probably anything with ball powder, make sure that these are seated deep inside as far as you can the funnel, or you will get some spillage. But other than that, awesome product. Then after that, I will put in the seating die, of course, after I use the Mandro, and then start throwing powder charges. I will use this here, which is the Hornady lock and load bullet comparator and insert set. There's a few companies that have these out there. I think the Widen dies even came with one for that caliber. But you can see on here I got the 223, and then I'll put this in my calipers. So a good set of calipers is good. These are just Mastercraft. That's what we have here in Canada, and they work well. So I'll put this in the calipers and zero it, and basically this will tell you the overall length at the ogive of the bullet. And the ogive is the first part of the bullet that touches the rifling when it goes into the barrel. That's how I do get my case overall length. And I also use this up here, overall length gauge, Hornady, and I use that for when my barrel is new and I want to get an overall length. I can do that from the ogive as well, so it's not a complete overall length from bullet tip to bottom to the base here. So that works well. And I have all the bushings, whatever you want to call them, for all of them. That's 257. And this one here is 7mm, 308, 338, that's 270, 6 mil, and last but not least, this would be 6.5, and then the 223. Okay, and that's how I get my length. Then I'll use Hornady concentricity gauge, and it basically tells me how straight my bullet is in the brass itself. And I've never really had any troubles with concentricity. It's always good, so I don't really use that much. I might check one or two once in a while, and it's always been good. That's pretty much it for all the tools that I use. Oh, the Swager. Let me find that thing for you. Okay, here's the primer pocket swager. And I don't use it very often. You only have to use it once, but it's set up for 223. I just put the 223 brass in there and then slide this down, and it gets out the crimp in the primer pocket for the military crimp primers. And that way you can reload them, because if you don't do that, you will just mangle the new primer when you go to put it in. So that's what I do. So that's pretty much it, everybody. So that is all my gear or tools and stuff that I use for reloading. So if you like this video, please like, subscribe, hit the notifications button so you don't miss any future content. And thanks everybody for watching, and take care.